Joining me is Arkansas Governor Sarah Sanders. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for doing this. So, Sarah, I tried to put it through. We're all hustling through the news cycle. What do you think? Let's start with the Kennedy thing. How do you read it?
You know, I think this is a great turn. You just finished up the Democrat National Convention, which was 4 days of total hypocrisy and dishonesty. And now we have this refreshing moment. And I think it's actually a pretty courageous thing for Kennedy to come out and endorse Donald Trump, a Republican running for president. What a shift. And I think it is a great momentum shift coming off of the DNC that will be a great thing to sail in for Donald Trump to win big in November.
Governor Sanders, you know, it's interesting. His reasons were so fascinating to me. Worried about children, worried about World War III, worried about nuclear war. Worried about overregulation. He even had a thing in there. He's worried about King Dollar, which, as you know, is music to my ears. I didn't expect. You know, Art Laffer and I and a few others had dinner with him. I don't know. I'm going to say 2-3 months ago, and we actually talked taxes and money a little bit, because his uncle, John F. Kennedy, was a very good economic president. But anyway, I digress. What I want to hear from you is these reasons. I mean, he doesn't agree with President Trump on everything, probably about halfway. I don't know how you see it. But these are important reasons, I would think. They're more or less populist reasons.
I think one of the big takeaways here is, Larry, that you influenced Kennedy to endorse Trump and helped bring him your way on the economy, too, just like you do the rest of us. But, you know, I think they don't have to agree on everything. But one of the important things is they agree that, like the rest of us, that Harris would be an absolute disaster for our country. We've already seen what she's capable of because she's been part of the failure of the last 4 years. If we don't want more inflation, a completely open border, absolute disruption and chaos across the global stage, then we can't allow Harris to become president, because she has been part of all of those things in the Biden-Harris administration. No matter how much they want to try to erase the failure of the past 4 years, they can't do it. The American people are too smart for that. Robert Kennedy sees that, and that is why I think he's endorsing Donald Trump today. And because I think he sees his numbers, he's not going to be able to win on his own, but he knows how dangerous Kamala Harris is for the country. And I think it's a courageous and great thing for him to step out of the race, endorse Donald Trump, and move his support towards him, because he wants to see our country move up, not down, which is exactly what we know we're all going to get if Harris were to be elected.
You know, Sarah, it was also interesting to me that Robert Kennedy Jr., you know, he saw the Democrats weaponizing lawfare against him in his running, and he compared that the same way to weaponizing lawfare and putting Donald Trump in jail, essentially throwing him in prison. I mean, that was in the release, or that was in his talk. And, you know, the Democrats say, and they said it again last night, we are the party of democracy. We're going to preserve democracy. What utter nonsense. What blather, Sarah, you know? I mean, here's Trump and here's Kennedy, two leading national figures, and they're out there today, and they're dominating the news cycle. And it's the Democratic Party who has done them both wrong.
They've both been on the receiving end and seen how the Democrat Party will stop at absolutely nothing to destroy their opponents, whether it's weaponizing the DOJ, whether it's turning their media allies against them, whatever it takes, they are willing to do. There's no line they won't cross. You and I both experienced that when we worked in the White House. There is nothing they won't do in order to win and to tear people down in order to take over power and have that control. The number of kind of revisionist history that we have heard from them over the past 4 days about their records, about what they plan to do, is absolutely absurd. And I'm glad that Robert Kennedy Jr. has seen this. He's supporting Trump, and I think he will join in the millions of Americans that will propel him to victory in November.
You know, Sarah, what was it you said a couple years ago when you gave that fabulous rebuttal to the Biden State of the Union? What was it? There's a normal party and a crazy party? I don't remember exactly, but you hit the nail on the head, and that nail is still there.
Absolutely. Normal versus crazy. You used to think they just had bad ideas. Now they're absolutely crazy ideas. We're the party of normal. And that's, I think, what the American people want to see. They don't need the government to be involved in every single decision, every moment of their life. To me, it gets really simple. If you want the government making decisions about where your kids go to school and how they're educated or how you run your business, how you engage in your community, vote for a Democrat. If you want to make those decisions yourself, vote for a Republican. We are the party of individual empowerment. And that, to me, is the greatest contrast that we can make. And one of the things that I hope Donald Trump will continue to remind the American people of over the next couple of months as we wrap up the end of this election cycle.
Yeah, well said. One last one. You made me think of this. Harris talked about freedom last night. She won't, that party won't give parents the freedom of, for example, school choice. They side with the teachers' unions every time. Teachers' unions, one of the most retrograde, regressive aspects of American life and doing so much damage to the kids. I give you the last word on that one, Sarah Sanders.
It's one of the things I'm most proud of here in the state of Arkansas. We passed universal school choice. Every student in the state starting next year will have access to the school that they need and they deserve. Kids finally getting exactly what they should when it comes to receiving a quality education. Democrats want to put kids in failing schools, not allow their parents to be empowered about making the best decisions for them. They love to try to co-opt and take ideas like freedom and claim that they support it, but none of their policies are about individual empowerment or supporting freedom across this country. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons that people will vote for Donald Trump, and the biggest reason that he's going to win is because they know that when you compare these two leaders, only one of them really believes in freedom and is willing to do something to protect it.
Governor Sarah Sanders, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your wisdom. We really appreciate it very much.